Life is precious, and we all have the opportunity of living it to the fullest. Unfortunately, so few of us know how to manage it all. How do we account for our opportunities? How do we account for our time? How do we account for our relationships, health, spirituality, homes, finances, influence, and careers? How do we account for the one life we have to live? I am so glad you asked. In this program, you will find answers to all of these questions and more. Welcome to the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore.
What's happening? Welcome back to another episode of the Account for Life podcast. And Jay Moore, the healthy accountant, helping you to account for your life. Today on the podcast, we're looking at the hidden secret embedded into freedom. As I was driving to the gym this morning, I was overcome with freedom, but I was overcome to something that's embedded into freedom that is eluding most of us because we have not tapped into this secret. So look, if you have not been following along, look, we're going to go deep on freedom. I just believe that everybody deserves to have freedom. Everybody deserves to go beyond freedom. And if you missed last week's podcast, go back and listen to that one, Going Beyond Freedom, when we talked about the essence of what beyond freedom is and how to gain, or really what the essence is all about, like limitless peace, like, having more than enough, the abundance, like, spending time with family, doing whatever you want, traveling, like all this stuff, going beyond freedom. But today's lesson, not just for you, for me, for all of us, is to really get serious about what freedom is and really how to attain it. I believe everyone who taps into this secret today will discover it in their lifetime. I believe it's almost but guaranteed when you do it. So look, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. Let me know what you get from these podcasts. Leave me a message. I definitely would love to hear from you at some point. All right, look, let's jump right in. I was driving to the gym and I was hit with the big D, discipline. We're gonna go deep on this word here, discipline. And I'm driving, I'm like, discipline? What are you talking about? Discipline. Like everything is discipline. Let's this is the secret. So I'm telling you straight off the bat. Discipline is the key to freedom in just about every realm of your life. Oh, I was going to the gym, so that means that there was a discipline for my body. Just one element. That's not even eating. There's a discipline, if you want to have a certain amount of money. There is a discipline if you want to have a successful business. There is a discipline if you want to have a good marriage, good relationships. There is a discipline in if you want to be a good parent, a good father, a good husband, a good wife. There is a discipline we must add in to achieve that thing. This is discipline. So just because we get one area right doesn't mean we've gotten the whole thing right, because I'm telling you, when it hit me like a ton of bricks this morning, discipline, I said, I put my head down. I said, man, I got work to do. Don't we all have work to do when it comes to having freedom within any realm that we're seeking freedom in? So I looked up the word discipline. It goes back to something that I was talking about earlier this year. It says discipline encompasses self-control. Let's look at self-control. What is self-control? Like, what does that really mean? One of the things we talked about earlier this year was getting control over our bodies. Like Account for Your Life, at the core of it that's where it started. Getting control over my body. So self-control it's like at the core, because discipline says that, well, you have to do this or you can't do something. And it's not like going to get a beating. Oh, I'm gonna get disciplined by my parents. No. What we're talking about is the fact that we have to now follow a path, follow along, go down and do something that either we want to do or maybe at some point we didn't want to do. So self-control is where it starts. It says training to teach order. Now I'm gonna tell you what's so powerful about this. Discipline, right? driving. Discipline hits me. I sat in the car for like 15 minutes before I went to the gym because I was just reeling from it. And then the first thing I saw, because I always listen to, one of my mentors, somebody that I love while I'm in the gym. It's typically a sermon, or it could just be a podcast or an interview, or one of the guys that I love. It could be Dr. Miles Monroe, which is most of the time Myron Golden. And today it was Eric Thomas. E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher. If you don't know who he is, go look up E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher. So one of his latest sermons about 4 weeks ago, I had watched the sermon a few weeks back, maybe at least 3 weeks back, could be 5. And it was in the sermon, I can't remember the title of the sermon, but it was on order. Now, I hadn't done my prep for the podcast yet. But discipline was already there. But I says, this probably ties into what I'm thinking already. And here it is, order. And the sermon that he did on order was out of this world. Like, it was just really, it was good. Now, here's what I get from sermons and what I get from when I'm listening to these guys. I'm getting reinforcements. Like, it's a reinforcement of the ideas that I already have. As you can see, I had an idea, discipline came, and then all of a sudden order came. And then I was able to take in, while I'm working out, I'm taking in just an understanding that he gained from the scripture. And so we've got to understand that when we're talking about discipline, self-control, we've got to train ourselves to go in the right direction, to go in the proper steps. And his sermon was all based on Genesis 1. The first part of Genesis 1, he just drilled and drilled and drilled it. Look, you couldn't have brought the day 6 to day 1. Day 6 is when humans were, when God made man. So if God would have made man out of order, then that would have caused a huge problem in creation. So when we're talking about discipline, we got to know that there is an order. There is a certain behavior. There was a certain behavior that we must now attain. All right. As I was also on my drive this morning, thinking about my discipline, I realized that there's times in the day when I have none. Be honest. There's times in the day when I have no discipline, and sometimes one thing I learned from one of my earliest coaches, Darren Hardy, he wrote the book Compound Effect. He also wrote the book The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. I know he wrote another book, but those are the two that I have. He talks about when you're looking to change your behavior, one of the fastest ways to really help yourself with behavior change is to make sure that the things that you're trying to change from are not near. So he uses food as like one of the things that a lot of times when we're trying to get our bodies in shape, we want to eat clean, we want to eat healthy. You've got to set your environment up so that you can't fail. And the hardest thing for someone who's it's not that you don't have discipline, it's not that you don't have self-control. It's that there's a certain time of day, certain part of the week, there's a time when you may not have as much. And what's in your environment is going to mean everything. So he teaches, just don't have the ice cream in the house. Just don't have the snacks in the house. Just don't have the stuff that you would basically eat in the house. And I'm gonna tell you, there's times in the day I'm just like, yo, what's in the house? My son is he's a chef, and he's a pastry chef. Most of the time when he cooks, it's like he'll go in there, he'll make brownies, he'll make all kinds of sweet stuff. I'm like, son, don't do it. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt us. It's gonna hurt everybody. And he can't help it because he's got Genome Small More just egging them on. Make those brownies, son. I'm gonna eat them brownies. That's right. I'm talking about you, Jenny. And so the brownies is in there. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. And I'm just like, I'll take a little piece. That's not the correct behavior. See, now there does come a time in your life. I was at a mastermind some years ago. It was just back in 2017. First mastermind I was ever at. We was in um, Cayman Islands. Oh my goodness, beautiful. Our coach, he had beautiful. He had rented this beautiful house on the water. We're hanging out, and there was one guy there that he said something that stuck with me to this day. His name was Kim. Kim was a financial advisor. So he wasn't an accountant, but he was learning systems through an accountant. It was kind of cool, but he was a financial advisor. So he's there, and he's a little older than me, but I could tell that he lifted weights, and I could tell he was into bodybuilding and stuff like that. I was just like, oh, Kim, Kim made it. I was like, well, how do you do it? And so Kim said something that stuck with me. He said, I never cheat. He says, because when you cheat, you become a cheater. I'm going to tell you, look. He says, you're a cheater at anything. I said, what are you talking about, Ken? Ken is like, you would cheat at anything. So I don't eat the ice cream. I don't eat the cookies. I don't eat the chip. I just don't eat it because I'm not going to ever find myself in a situation where I'm cheating. Oh, look. It was deep on so many levels. My wife was there too. And Jenny was just like, that's just too rigid for me. But you know what? A person like me, I can appreciate when someone tells me their gold, when someone tells me how they did it. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to do it. It doesn't mean that you want to do it. But when you think about what it takes to think about the getting. See, discipline in freedom is getting. We want to get something. So if I want freedom in my money, freedom in my body, freedom in my health, freedom in my relationships, freedom in all this stuff, then I'm going to have to do something to get it. And so we got to know what the behavior is. What is the behavior of the person who was disciplined? What is their behavior? And Ken is like, man, when it comes to eating and taking care of my body, I will never cheat. I said, man, that's strong. Man, that's strong. Another one for you. It's a book behind me. It's called The Ultimate Sales Machine. It's written by a guy named Chet Holmes. Chet Holmes, he passed away some years ago. Man, he passed away before I could go to one of his events. But I remember him and Tony Robbins back in the day. I had Sirius satellite radio in my car. I always heard commercials with these guys, and they were just so cool and so upbeat. So I got his book, The Ultimate Sales Machine, because he was a sales guy. Like, he taught people how to sell. And I read this book. One of the things that he says in the book on how he became successful, he says, you have to be pig-headed. You have to have pig-headed discipline. Like, you have to be a crazy person when it comes to getting the results that you actually desire. Wow, this is deep. Look, I'm going to slow down, right? Because I feel like I'm talking fast. I'm maybe even talking inspiring. And I want to inspire you into action. I don't want to inspire you to just feel good, because, guys, I'm gonna be honest, discipline doesn't always feel good. Like there's a phrase that I need to coin. I will do what's best for me, even when it feels like pain. That's all about discipline. Because when I'm talking about what is best for me, then yes, it may hurt. Yes, there may be pain. Yes, there may be a situation where it just doesn't feel good. But man, it feels good when I get the results. I read a lot of books, and there's a book behind me somewhere written by Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar talks, there's a bunch of books. I can't remember which one it was. But Zig Ziglar talked about a book that he was writing. And so he's writing this book, and and in the book, he was talking about having good health, and, he was talking about how you got to be in shape. And he was getting to the end of the book, and he realized he was none of those things. Imagine that. I've got a book that I'm desiring to write right now. And I'm like, man, but I haven't done that yet. Ziegler was talking about being in good health, and he says, well, when I finish this book, I will be the person. And he talks about the process that he went through before he finished the book to get into good health. And he talked about the discipline that he put himself under, the rigorous approach, the rigorous approach that he actually had to do in order to take off the 30 pounds that he had to take off. Here's the thing, though. Remember, it's behavior. Now, who has to teach the behavior? A lot of times we're looking for people to help us. Man, I need help with this. I need help with, I need a coach. I need a mentor. I need a trainer. And here's the thing about the coach, the mentor, the trainer. They can't do it for you. That's the thing. So if we think anything about discipline, we could be working with the world's greatest and still not get the results if we don't do what they said to do, which is the behavior. If we don't change our behavior, if we don't teach ourselves that, hey, that old thing that I used to do, I no longer do. Like Paul says in Philippians, there's a thing that I used to do that I can't do. I want to do, but I can't do it because I must press towards the prize. Yep, this ain't the prize. Like this thing that I'm doing right here ain't the prize, but the prize is in front of me in Philippians 3:13 and 14, when he talks about, I forget the past. Like that's one of the first things we got to do when we're talking about having freedom is forget the past. And so Paul talks about, look, in order to teach myself, I've got to press towards the mark, the prize, which God has given. So it's behavior that has to change when we're talking about discipline. It also says that we have to have an ability to follow rules. Come on, there's some people maybe listening to this, and you don't like rules like me. I don't like rules. It's crazy. I don't like rules, but yet I'm in an industry that's full of rules. I don't like rules, but you have to be able to control your impulses and persevere through difficulties. Remember the pain, right? We got to persevere through that. See, what discipline wants to do is turn you into somebody. Discipline would like to give you an identity. And I'm going to say it like this, right? Identity is who you become as a result of actually doing something. Like when you think about, Jay Moore, the healthy accountant, helping you to account for your life. I had to take on a brand new identity in order to even sit down in front of this camera, in order to sit down in front of this microphone and let these words come out of my mouth. I had to read a lot of books. I had to do a lot. Actually, have to do a lot of things. I had to experience a lot of things as it pertains to the realm of health. Let's talk about some of the things that I've done in the healthy realm. I started out in the healthy realm. I needed to lose 20 pounds. At the time, I think I got on the scale and I was almost 220 pounds. And I was like, oh my goodness, I had like 220 at 6'3". I don't look fat. Like technically, if people saw me, they wouldn't have looked at me as overweight. It's just that underneath it all, it wasn't like I was full of muscle. And I remember I posted a picture of myself on Facebook, like, hey, I want to put this out here, just what I look like now. And then I went through a series of things. What did I do? Here's what I did. I ran, even though I hated running. I would do what's best for me, even though it feels like pain. Started running. I ran 7 days a week for a long time, running 7 days a week. I was doing push-ups, sit-ups. I didn't even go to the gym. I just did push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, squats, stretching, And anything that I can do around the house, never lifted a weight. And now I also changed my diet some, and I was drinking protein shakes and I was taking supplements. And boy, oh boy, I went from almost 220 pounds, and I got down to as far as about 182 pounds, I believe. It's funny because my wife, she sent me a video of way back when, just last night, and it showed me of what I look like. Like now, I'm heavy today. I'm around 210, just under 210, maybe 209 this morning. I didn't take my scale. I didn't get on the scale this morning. I'm probably around 209 this morning. Now, most of it is definitely muscle, but because I've been a cheater, I still got some. My 6-pack, this 8-pack is not showing the way it needs to show. So, yes, I did that, right? I've done the gym thing. I've like literally gone back and forth, running, walking, gym, thousands and thousands and thousands of push-ups, like a lot of stuff along the way. Worked out at different times of the day. I did morning, noon, and night. Did them all. Settled in on the mornings. I love doing it in the morning, but I remember starting out, I was doing it late at night. I was going to the gym at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, because I was just like, hey, that's the time I can go. So I've studied myself on what it is that I could do, one, to have a healthy outside. That's just the outside, guys. It has nothing to do with the inside, right? Because the inside is now, well, what am I eating, right? Yeah, I eat decent, but I can't tell you to eat great. I eat okay. I just need to get more disciplined, right? I got to get more disciplined. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to insert a word here. Here's the word: prepare. Discipline requires preparedness. If you're not prepared, you're just going to be swept into. So a lot of times when I'm eating, I'm not prepared. When I'm prepared, I'm good to go. But when I'm not prepared, I'll just eat whatever everybody else is eating. Now, I won't eat everything everybody else is eating, but typically I try and stay within a certain, realm of way I eat. Prepared. So I've done a lot of things. So I had to take on a new identity in order to become the healthy accountant. Yes, I went vegan for a while. I didn't eat meat. Like I did a whole bunch of stuff in my diet just to kind of figure out what I like. I like eating meat. So I'm close to the carnivore than anything. Like I'm close. I'm very close. I eat vegetables. I'm not like a crazy vegetable salad person anymore. I may eat a salad here and there, but I don't eat a lot of salads. That's me, right? And so here's the thing. Now I'm healthy. I've been to the doctor. I've done all blood works. I'm good to go. So I know that I'm not hurting myself. I don't even drink as much water as I used to drink because water is interesting. Water is interesting. You don't need as much water as you think you need, right? Because most water coming out anyway. And I find that when I was drinking all this water, it's just coming out like that. Just means it's not needed. I'll say that again. All that water coming out just means it's not needed. It didn't get absorbed. So most water that we drink doesn't get absorbed in our body. So that I drink water, just not as much as I used to. I used to drink cups and I used to drink bottles and bottles and bottles of water every single day, just going to the bathroom all the time. I said, I don't want to do that anymore. So I drink a couple cups, but I don't go overboard. So everybody has to go through their own discipline to get to the point where you become a disciple. This word disciple is interesting, right? Because disciple, the first thing they wanted to put in here is the personal follow of Jesus during his life. They should have just said, these are people who were disciplined. That's all a disciple is. It's a person who is disciplined at something very specific. So here's the thing. There are 12 disciples, and man, I love, there's a guy named Reverend Ike who's on YouTube. And he talks about the 12 disciplines, the 12 disciples. I haven't studied it much, but I got to go back and listen to it because his teachings were out of this world. Like the stuff that he was teaching on in the 70s and the 80s, out of this world. I asked my mom about this when I discovered Reverend Knight because I remember the word. I remember him many years ago. I said, Mom, do you remember Reverend Knight? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, man, that prosperity got blah, 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 blah. That's when I lost it. I said, Mom, what are you talking about? Yes, he was teaching the truth. I'm not telling you that he was perfect. What I'm telling you, the stuff that he was teaching was transformative and life-changing. He was teaching people to have abundance. He was teaching people to become disciples by having the discipline at the things that needs to be disciplined in their life in order to have the abundance. And man, I'm gonna tell you, man, this guy is amazing. So go look him up. But he talks about this. So this is not religious. Disciple is not religious. Like this is an identity. Like I have an identity of the healthy accountant. I have an identity who's somebody who's really going to work out. I have an identity of somebody. When you see me, I'm looking the part. I at least look it. So that's the first thing. I look the part. And then like I said, man, I have to become a disciple when you find like, man, this guy's like he's really wealthy. He's really rich. Oh my goodness, his abundance is crazy. He's teaching me how to do the same thing. Like that's the next phase of my life. Teach other people how to do all these things because that's in essence what Jesus did. He taught the people how to do all the things he was doing. You want to raise the dead? Here's how you do it. You want to heal the sick? Here's how you do it. You want to cast out demons? Here's how you do it. Like you want to turn water into wine? Here's like all the things he taught them how to do it. But they didn't just learn it. See, you just can't learn something just because you read it. They had to be in the presence of it. They were in his presence. They got his anointing. Like he breathed on them so that they could experience this discipline. So they, in essence, became his disciples because they were able to do what he was able to do. He says, greater works will you do, my disciples, because when I go, you'll be able to do it on a much bigger and higher level. Every person living in 2025 and beyond has the ability to do more than Jesus Christ did while he was here. Now, here's the thing. Because of the seeds he planted, because of who he was, yeah, we can't trump what he actually has done because what he's created is massive. But while he was here, he couldn't do it alone. So that's why we have to step into our personal discipline. Remember, the hidden secret in freedom is discipline, right? Now, I'm going to touch on this one other area before I let you go, but we'll have to come and go back deep into this later. Because where does discipline take us? See, let's think about what freedom is first before we really look at it. What is freedom? And I pulled up my essence document of freedom, beyond freedom. Beyond freedom is living in peace, shalom. Beyond freedom is living in, beyond freedom means margin, having more than enough for others. Beyond freedom is living as if lack or oppression never existed. Beyond freedom is about others. Beyond freedom is exponential. Beyond freedom looks like abundance, more finances, prosperity. Beyond freedom is not transactional. Beyond freedom is limitless. Freedom without dominion is incomplete. So discipline takes us to Dominion. What is dominion? What is dominion? Sovereignty or control. We started with self-control. Remember, like discipline is having self-control, but it takes us to having dominion. Every person at the sound of my voice has a dominion already embedded into their life. It starts with discipline. Now, when we do a whole training on freedom, we don't even get to discipline before we free ourselves. See, if you don't free yourselves, you're not gonna even do discipline. If you don't free yourself, you're not gonna do discipline. So free yourself is forget the past, renew your mind, exercise your body so you can get control of it, and then start empowering others with all of what you're starting to do. Because you free yourself, start showing people you're free. Because now is where the real work comes in discipline. So dominion comes as a result of discipline, but we don't get the discipline before we free ourselves. Because imagine if you had control and you weren't free. You would lose control, and then you would lose your dominion. Last thing, the reason why I say that you gotta go through the process of free first to get to discipline, because that's the order. See, remember I talked about Eric Thomas and how he was preaching on order. And we talk, and so what he was talking about is a lot of times we want to have things, we want to experience things. And so we go out of order. And because we went out of order in our life, then we're trying to figure out why things not working right, because we got something before we were supposed to get it, and now things are not working. So imagine if you became disciplined, but you didn't actually get free. You'll be out of order, which means that you would probably lose control. And because you would lose control, you wouldn't have any sovereignty. And no sovereignty means that we would lose the dominion that we were placed here to have. And we would be in that cycle of rat race, hustling, grinding, just doing all the things, but never actually getting the results that we actually desire. So it's important that order comes first. I know I did this lesson today specifically on discipline, and only going back quickly on, how to get there. We got to first free ourselves. Come back next week. We'll do the whole podcast next week on free, so that then the podcast after that, we'll go through O and M, and we'll round out the whole freedom training, because I believe that everyone deserves freedom. Everyone deserves freedom, because once you have freedom, then you can go beyond freedom and experience limitless. Then you can experience the abundance, the prosperity, having margin for others. You experience the peace. You'll be able to act as if lack never existed. Like, you would have dominion over your life, and you would be in a position to teach others to do the same. God bless you guys. And I look, my sole mission here on this podcast is to help people to account for them. I believe to account for your life is to discover your personal freedom. So if you know somebody looking, wanting, desiring their personal freedom, let them know about this podcast. Because you may not be able to explain it to them. Let me explain it to them here on the podcast. Let them binge watch all the old podcasts. We're at 1,150 podcasts over the course of the last 7 No, 5 years, not 7 years. We're at 5 years. So, guys, I appreciate you for joining me today for this episode of the Account for Life podcast. The hidden secret embedded into freedom. What is it? Discipline. I appreciate you. Love you. I will see you on the next one. God bless.
This has been the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore. Until next time, make it a great day.